Hey everybody, welcome to my favorite shitty movie. Very excited to be here tonight because our world has gone insane. I think the United States, its whole political thing right now is kind of a shitty movie, the kind you can't take your eyes off of, and it's funny and you laugh at it, but it's also horrifying that you're laughing at it. I don't know, it's weird. So it's very nice to go back to the '80s and see a Tom Hanks thing. Well, it's really a Dan Aykroyd thing called Dragnet. That's what we're talking about tonight. It's a movie based on a TV show, which this is kind of, that didn't happen a lot back then. This is kind of one of the first ones. Now, we do it all the time. We got 21 Jump Street, we got Baywatch, we've got it all. But this one really started the trend. And it's like a lot of them in that, it's not particularly good and not sure what they were thinking. But it's got Tom Hanks and he's incredibly charming. And I got this box set because at the time it was the only way to get the Burbs in 16:9, TVs, so it would look good on your a widescreen TV. And I consider this my Tom Hanks comedic misfire box set, because while I enjoy all these movies, they're not hilarious. They're just not hilarious. But they're very enjoyable, mostly because Tom Hanks is very enjoyable. He made Bachelor Party work, and he thinks that movie's a piece of shit. And it's, misogynistic and homophobic and racist and wrong. But, it's enjoyable because Tom Hanks is in it. So here we are talking about that level of 80s stuff. And I miss those days. It was Reagan, it was cocaine, and the movies were crazy. And sometimes they just said, we'll take an old concept, we'll do it again, but this time we'll make it super silly. And I was fine with that. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a co-host that I need to bring up. She has strong feelings about Dragnet and probably Tom Hanks. I don't know. She's a producer. She's been up since dawn doing post-production on an indie film that she shot in Ireland. Oh, my God. She's got to be in a crazy place right now. Her name is Tracy Mercer.
I am a very crazy place right now. As I was saying before the show, I had like maybe 5-10 minutes between Zooms and having to leave for a later lunch. And I caught some of the press conference with Mr. Trump talking to black ladies. It's like SNL writers, take the week off. Just roll the transcript. And I, as we also talk about, he does sound like Cartman. So now anytime I hear Trump talk, it's like, dude, you're treating me very unfairly. And it's like, it's so insane to me where he's like, now Kamala's suddenly black. And I'm like, how is this happening? Like this, like even SNL wouldn't push that comedy limit. But yes, ever since I guess birth and then going to Howard. But yes, I mean, Mr. Trump, it's a crazy time, but I also am feeling a groundswell of support, and there's some positive stuff out there, which has been nice after a couple of years, 8 of hopelessness. So we'll see what happens. But I agree with you. I am super stoked that Amber brought us Dragnet from '87 because it is so not a film of this time.
It really isn't. Just the Aykroyd element. We'll talk about this when Amber's on, but the Aykroyd element, Aykroyd's movie career in the 80s is so interesting to me because most of it is just recovering from the loss of his best friend and comedic partner. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of these movies, and I wondered about this one, was this his concept for him and John Belushi? And then
I mean, well, he definitely, I think the early days they wanted Jim Belushi in the Tom Hanks role, and Belushi wasn't available, and so he had to be sold on Tom Hanks. It wasn't an obvious choice to get Hanks yet, because Hanks was about what I thought was amazing about this movie, because I don't think it works at all. I think it's not funny. I think it's specifically it's such a train wreck. It's fascinating to watch, so I'm glad.
It's not boring.
It's not boring. It's just kind of like, oh my God, like this.
What are they doing?
Yeah, like Dan Aykroyd, I agree with you. I think we might have mentioned this on previous shows. Aykroyd is a good sidekick. but I never think like there's no reason to do Dr. Detroit. Like there's no reason for him to be Joe Friday in this, and it's just he's not someone that I gravitate towards.
How have we not done Dr. Detroit on this show?
The highlight of that is the Devo song. I mean, that's it. Like, this is power walking, but
what amazing junk it is.
It's amazing junk. But what was fun about this, to your point, the idea that, Reagan was fully ensconced. I mean, he was like in his second term, right? In full dementia mode. So I guess we had, Nancy talking to astrologers buying China, wearing red and running the country. So it's weird. But like that was happening at the same time. Tipper Gore was trying to take our music, and we had the NPRC of it all, which only made us buy all of the albums with the sticker. Well done.
Dee Snider has changed political affiliations so many times since then, because he was sort of the mouthpiece for the First Amendment back then, and then he became.
He and Frank Zappa. I think Zappa was the most literate, and that man slayed before Congress.
That's true, but Zappa was also always super liberal.
Yeah,
like Dee Snider went from that to being very conservative politically, and then Trump happened and he switched back. So Dee Snider's an interesting case for me.
But I always feel that way. Like, someone like Johnny Rotten, who's like a Trumper. And I'm like, you were in a punk band. You're like, that evolution. I mean, I guess I don't know. It's too complicated for me to figure out. But this movie, it does take you back to that time and that kind of satanic panic. We talked about this on kind of our holiday shows with the Silent Night, Deadly Night films, where, I guess we would have called them Karens before we called them Karen, like the soccer moms before they were soccer moms, like the PTA gals who had too much time on their hand and thought that Hester Prynne and the Scarlet Letter needed to be burned at the stake, all these kinds of things. And then these movies come out. So the idea that you have Christopher Plummer, playing, I think he's going for a gay priest. The affectation is not my favorite. But it's funny.
I mean, it's fun. You said that to me before, and I didn't get. I thought it was like a weird affect. I didn't get that it was
weird. It's a weird thing because he's very when he talks, and then you have him hanging out with a pornographer, which makes sense, right? You have the evangelicals talking to a Larry Flint type, played by Dabney Coleman, who basically is like the same character from like Modern Problems. He's like, hey.
Yeah, except he has a weird lispy.
He has a weird lisp. So you have Dabney Coleman doing this, and then you've got like Christopher Plummer, and these scenes together, and you're like, I don't know what these gentlemen are doing.
I'll tell you what, these performances are not unlike the performances in The Bike Riders, which is a new movie that's not supposed to be funny. But let's bring on our guest so we can talk about Dragnet more deeply. She's a therapist. You can hire her to fix your crazy problems. And she is friendly to people who like shitty movies. I think most of her client base is people who love shitty movies. Her name is Amber Keating. And here she is.
Amber Keating.
Hello.
Wow. Welcome back. I mean,
the introduction. Thank you.
Last time Amber was here, I believe we were talking about Gothica.
Mm-hmm.
With the great Academy Award-winning actress Halle Berry, whose character takes 2 hours to figure out what "not alone" means. That she's not so that was you guys. She's not alone. That's what it means. Not alone.
Sometimes it takes a while to work things out. I mean, it's easy for us to judge because we're passive viewers. We're not in the situation.
With things written on your skin by a supernatural force.
Right. The characters don't necessarily know what kind of movie they're in.
That's right. That's right.
So Dragnet, Amber, we've already talked to you about what a great shitty movie is for you. How does this fit into your great shitty movie pantheon?
Oh my gosh. I just think it's so fun and ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think it's the ridiculousness and the fact that it is set in the 80s that makes it for me. So the ridiculousness, the weird, like you said, Tracy, the like Dabney Coleman with the lisp, and Christopher Plummer with his weird little affectations. I wrote that down and was like, what is he doing?
What is
this? So it's like this weirdness. I think that's what I love so much, is when I'm just like, what were these people thinking? Yeah, like, and I'm really enjoying it.
but then there's also like again the satanic panic. So we just put in like some Satanists. So obviously the evangelicals part. But then you have like, I mean, literally like kudos to like Tom Hanks. You know, the idea that this man would win 2 Oscars within the next 5 years of this film coming out, it's like it's insane to me. But he's such a good sport, and I agree with Tom. I don't think I've ever not loved Tom Hanks in something, right? Whether he's the guy and He Knows You're Alone in the Slicer movie or whatever. It's
even if it's a comedy that's not funny, which my favorite example of that is Volunteers, because you got John Candy and Tom Hanks and what's her face, and they're all so wonderful and enjoyable, and you're into them, and you want to see this journey through with them, but the journey's like kind of patchy and weird, and there are no jokes, and so you get through the whole movie. It's like, I didn't laugh once, but I wasn't tortured by it. It was it's the weirdest. It's a Tom Hanks phenomenon. He really
understand. Is in that Jimmy Stewart kind of way, like an everyman, and you can plug him into almost any genre. I don't think he's ever given a bad performance. Like, and he will occasionally go off brand. Like, I think it probably hurt the movie because people want to see him as the good guy. But like, if you look at the performance in Road to Perdition, where he's just he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's wonderful. And there's something about like his choices in that consistently, but then he can show up in The Burbs and just be like, insane. Or Joe versus Volcano, another, film spotlighted on this with one of my favorite of your reenactments when you did your Hanks dance. But I think like there's something magical about him. And it's that it factor that makes him a star, because he is so accessible, but he's also ridiculously cute and charming. I mean, it's like, he is. I got nothing for you. It's like,
the thing about him in this movie, I mean, just in general in these kind of silly movies, and the reason why, I mean, like, he seemed to be an actor who was thirsting to be dramatic. He was thirsting for the Saving Private Ryans and the Captain Phillips, and that's it. And I'm very glad that he found that. And
he's wonderful.
He's a very good actor. And in these comedies, which are still my favorite Tom Hanks, my favorite Tom Hanks era is the comedic Tom Hanks, because he wasn't on a sketch show and he wasn't a stand-up. He played a stand-up eventually, but he wasn't any of those things.
Punchline,
yeah. But he worked well in these comedies, and if you compare him to Aykroyd in this, like his performance, even though when he's super silly, it always feels naturalistic and real. Whereas Aykroyd, I think, is more of a sketch comedy performer.
Yeah.
So, like, he, it's that thing. It's like
always taping to the camera. Whereas, look, you're right. This is a perfect still for that, because it's like Hanks is effortless. He's making jokes, and but he's subtle, and he's actually in the scene as written. And Aykroyd's just kind of making faces.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and that's it. And like Hanks is, you can tell with almost everybody in this movie, when they're doing the procedural "we're talking to you" thing, Hanks is not just listening, he's got an intention for these people. Like that shot you just had, he was fucking with the guy they were talking to, and that's what he was concerned with as an actor in the scenes. And the difference is Dan Aykroyd was concerned about the comedy, and as a result Tom Hanks is funnier, if that makes any sense, because he's in the reality of the thing with the other actors.
Yeah. He does seem a lot more present, know, whereas like Aykroyd's in this, like, doing a thing, and Hanks is being. I don't know if that.
I think that's right. I think it's right. But it's funny too, because I want to talk about, I mean, Todd brought this up at the top of the show. I mean, first of all, in the 80s, we started to do sequels towards the end of the 80s, and now we've never recovered. But so it's unusual to do sequels back then. It is really unusual to do remakes to old television shows.
Yeah, this is an early IP movie.
It's an early IP movie, which again, we've never recovered from. But what's interesting is, it's funny because if you go to, yes, absolutely, John, he's very grounded, Tom Hanks, in every movie he does. But I think what's interesting about this movie, though, is that because it comes out when it does, you have to remember Dragnet had been off the air for quite a bit. And so us Gen Xers, we probably caught reruns, syndication. So
That's how I knew it at the
we knew it
time.
a little bit, but it wasn't our show. It was something our parents watched, and we occasionally saw a rerun if we were in the room. But
It's what I watched before the reruns of Hawaii Five-0.
Right. But the thing is that the target audience for Aykroyd back then and the emerging of Hanks back then did not know Dragnet. So the idea that older, I'm going to go with men probably, who greenlit films, because that's usually who does it back in the day, decided we need to take a piece of property that we loved and assume it's going to translate to a younger demographic, even though we're going to take something that was a drama, that was serious, and then make it a comedy and switch genres on it. To me, it's kind of like when, as Gen Xers, we probably all watch My So-Called Life and love Claire Danes. So when she was trying to be like a movie star, they're like, we should put her in the Mod Squad. We don't know the Mod Squad. We don't know who Peggy Lipton is. I mean, we do, most of us don't. So it's like this thing where the target audience of the Mod Squad has no idea who My So-Called Life is. And they're like, why didn't it work? And I'm like, this is the same, the beginning of that. Like you can't just take IP for the sake of IP.
Well, and it's also there's an element of a fish out of water story comedically that they're going for. But but part of the problem with this movie is it doesn't really figure out what its own comedic thesis statement is.
Right.
And if they had leaned harder into the fish out of water, this guy who's just old timey classic cop, like dealing with a modern 80s crazy world, if they had stuck that, then it would have been way funnier, but they didn't commit to it enough in the narrative. I don't think.
No.
And a lot of that, and I'm not sure, but a lot of that may have to do with the fact that Tom Hanks is so good that focus started shifting over to the other guy. And so we lost that.
And they tried this connective thing, right, where you have the great, Henry Morgan, who, of course, was the co-star in the original Dragnet series. But I would wager most of us, when we saw Dragnet, we don't associate him with Dragnet as much as we do MASH.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Like, so even that connective tissue doesn't quite.
Oh my God! How come no one's ever done a MASH movie? Crazy. What a wasted opportunity.
And can I just say too, Harry Morgan was so famous. I mean, he was in so many movies. I am a huge fan, along with my husband, John Keating, who's been on this show a number of times. Huge fan of film noir, classic black and white films. And he's in every movie. We're like, oh, look, it's Henry, aka Harry Morgan, constantly. And he's always amazing.
He's on the Twilight Zone a bunch. You can watch a lot of old shows, and he's
terrific. But again, it's this thing of like,
and his crowning achievement, of course, was After MASH.
Really?
Right? We all watched After MASH.
No.
You don't remember this? MASH ended, and then like 2 years later, they did a spinoff called After MASH, and it had Colonel Potter and Klinger and somebody else, Radar, maybe not Radar, but it was like 3 of the supporting characters, and they were in a hospital now in America.
John Keating is saying it's not a Western noir until Harry Morgan shows up. Love it.
Amen.
But again, it's just funny because it's like, I think Aykroyd used to do Dragnet sketches on SNL and wanted to do this as a feature film. And it was, so that was kind of a genesis of it. And then Tom Mankiewicz, who is the great Joe Mankiewicz's son, also a writer in his own right. I think some of the wittiest lines in the original Superman, the movie, go to Mr. Mankiewicz. I mean, it's one of my favorite notes, like Superman, the movie, Christopher Reeve, 1978. It's a children's film. His family can go see it. You have Mr. White. Oh, Lois, there's not 2 P's in rapist. It's like he has these things that come in there, like the bit with the underwear. Oh, Miss Lane, I guess this planner must be lead. I can't see through lead. 5 minutes later, pink. Oh God, he's able to get these sexual double entendres in a Superman script, and so he had a deal with the studio to write. So they were like, well, let's get Mankiewicz in here to write it. And they had offered it to another director who had no interest in doing it and had dropped out. And they said, well, we're already paying Mankiewicz. He wants to direct. Let's let him direct. So a lot of the criticism of this film when it came out, in addition to the IP not really translating to the generation it's aimed at, was he's not the best director. And so there's a lot of like real wide shots and coverage questions, I think, with this. And so you can see a writer learning how to direct with a studio budget, which today would be much harder to achieve. But again, it's so weird because I think of him as having such wit and he's such a good writer, but I don't know that I would say this is his shining moment.
No, but I and again, I wonder how much of the screenplay itself got lost in the shooting of it.
Yeah, and it was improv because of who was there.
Yeah, there's improv, and they're leaning on Hanks a lot because it's interesting even at this time for Hanks to sort of take a part where he's a second fiddle to somebody,
right?
And I guess like in the 80s at some point people weren't quite sure what we do with Tom Hanks. What do we do? We pair him up with somebody else because the John Candy thing works so well in Splash. So
I think Jeff Luce brings up a good point here. Like, and he really appreciates this movie, loves it, but he has an interesting thought. What would happen if you flipped Hanks with Aykroyd? I would believe Hanks a lot more with the female lead than that. But I thought even the way Aykroyd is playing his character, it's almost like they don't want to commit to him being a virgin as well. So even that gets to be muddled. It's like he doesn't quite commit. It's like when Will Smith shows up in 6 Degrees of Separation, but then can't be seen kissing a man on screen. And you're like, then don't take the role. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, come on. But like, it's just kind of weird. But the idea that this whole runner about, the Virgin Connie Swale, so that you could have the line at the end, Connie Swale. And you're like, wow, man, in 87, that was a runner for a feature film.
I know, a runner of virgin jokes.
It's like, God. And it's like, and I'm sure I'm sure the girl is like, I'm all over Dan Aykroyd, it's like 3 years.
That actress, by the way, is the lead in a Canadian straight to video movie called The Paperboy. She's married to William Catt, and the neighborhood paperboy becomes unhealthily obsessed with her. If you can find The Paperboy, highly recommend. Highly recommend.
She's been in a lot of not great movies, from what I could tell.
She's totally
but she got in a lot of movies like this. Actually, careers like this, like from my standpoint, are fascinating to me. I mean, it's like she got in a lot of shit for a while, and none of it really hit. Dragnet didn't do well, and then like other stuff is just obscure horror stuff. But she was working consistently in features and on TV shows for a while.
Yeah,
and I'm like, she didn't. She wasn't in Dragnet. It bombed, and then everybody was like, "Fuck off." She kept working. So I just want to know who her representation is and how I can sign with that.
Right. How do we get connected?
I mean, she's cute as a button, and she does what she needs to do, which is not very much in this movie because they weren't concerned about writing a part for her.
Well, and she was like a lot of people. I mean, I feel like everybody got this note that they, let's play this up. Let's play up the comedy. Christopher Plummer, come up with a crazy laugh, evil laugh. You do that, and Dabney Coleman, you do whatever you want to do because we're scared of you because you're a dick. So you can do whatever. You can do whatever you want to do, and it's crazy. And then they told her, and you just play it like a 1940s movie virgin where, the virgin that needs to be sacrificed to is, so you're kind of dumb and sweet. Everybody got those notes. And then Tom Hanks is just the one guy who's playing it real. So
it's true. I mean, they're charming and they're trying to, one likes chili cheese dogs, the other one's eating sushi. I mean, they're really doing their best to try to, look, we have character development. It's like I always love when they do stuff like that. Like in Seven, I always think of like, Morgan's sophisticated. He reads Dante, and he drinks wine, right? Brad Pitt's like, can I get the Cliff Notes? Here's my beer, right? It's it's like the shorthands with who these men are. But I appreciate the joke and this would have been like a very in California joke where sushi started getting mainstream. He's having this conversation with Aykroyd, who is just completely anachronistic for 1987's Los Angeles either. And they but again, I don't think they know what to do with that joke. Like what can work in a skit over a 2-hour movie is
well, and they were reaching.
Also, wait, is that sushi? Because I totally thought that was like a fruit plate. I'm like, he is eating fruit with chopsticks.
It looks like
It
watermelon
looks
on a
like
plate.
it was a fried situation. Like here, I was like, oh,
Mhm.
maybe it is fruit,
I
but
don't
it's like
know.
he's
It's
the
fruit
health
on lettuce. It's fruit on lettuce.
Ew, why do they do that?
Ew.
It's like remember when your parents are like, "Oh, look, it's an hors d'oeuvre," and I'm like, "It's celery with cheese spread." I don't.
This was such comic fodder all through the 80s. You know, the cop partner who's healthy and the cop partner who isn't. They were
Right.
doing that the whole time.
And it's just funny because it's like then they're like, "Well, we have to have car chases," but then they have like, stuffed animals on the beach.
they did so much with that stuffed dog too, like to
so
the point
much.
where it ended the action sequence by falling off the grill of the thing and onto the.
Totally. And then we've got, speaking of Superman, I guess Superman, he was in the first one of the Phantom Zone, and Superman 2 figures prominently, a face from our childhood who I guess in real life was a quite accomplished boxer for quite a time.
Yep. In the Hall of Fame in California and New Jersey.
Yep. So there you go.
That's the guy who helped out Zod in Superman 2?
Yes. Ursa.
Have you I don't want to promote other podcasts about movies. This is the only one that matters. But if you have a minute and you want to listen to this guy who's now gone, I believe, but this guy talked to the How Does It Get Made? How Did This Get Made crew? Paul Scheer and Jason Mantzoukas and his like just it's a live talking about Superman 2, his behind the scenes stories. It's fucking crazy. Like he was insane. Like if Jason Mantzoukas stops talking and is just listening to you, that's special. The way he talks about Christopher Reeve and everything, it's sort of it'll change a lot of the way you think about Superman.
Funny. Well, he's great at this. I mean, it's fun to see him, and then Dan Aykroyd trying to get this is them going undercover, and I love that they've associated the fake evangelicals with Nazis, which I think is current. But
exactly
they went out of their way to do that, and then I like how they have to spell it pagan, people against goodness and normalcy. I was just like, okay, in the era of satanic panic, I guess that works.
Yeah, but also paganism has nothing to do with Satanism.
Nothing. That's why it's so. I always love it when they're like, "Oh, not the Druids." I'm like, "Aren't they into trees?" And you don't have to.
Yeah. There's too much Christianity in this movie that might have also muddied the waters in the narrative.
Well, I mean that's the part where Hollywood kind of can screw with things. Like, I mean, there's a whole generation that's like 666, it's the beast, and I'm like, no, that's what the Omen told you, but that's actually Nero's number if we're gonna get scriptural, and so that's not right. But like, Hollywood has convinced you. Look behind the ears, Jared Kushner or whomever, and there's like, but it's weird how Hollywood.
The other thing they always say. Like Christians when they're criticizing movies always say Hollywood presents Christianity as a negative all the time. The priests are child molesters. I don't know how you would come up with that, and there's all these things. It's all negative people. And then I'm like, but Dragnet, you've got Dragnet. This is a pro-Christian movie that just decimates all other religions.
That's a way to look at it.
So you've got your Dragnet Christians. Shut up.
Well, I mean, but again, it's like, well, we got the pretty girl. We've got the goat. The situations going into the thing where both of them getting into the python. I could not get it still. Where this was the best I could do, but I was laughing. This is like Tor Johnson with the octopus. Like,
it's
level,
completely
level.
It's exactly what I was thinking of watching them. I'm like, they're totally thrashing that snake around.
So tragic. And then
and it's another thing about like how good Tom Hanks is like he actually like that he knows that this looks stupid. But he sells it perfectly anyway.
Yeah.
It's the best Ed Wood acting that Ed Wood acting has ever been.
Completely. And so just when you think it can't get weirder, so you've got like this Nazi setup, and then you've got the guy literally from The Sound of Music playing this like weird priest cooper, and it's just so funny. But they rescue the girl, right? They get away. And this goes probably to Jeff's point. Like, I would believe the girl with Hanks a lot easier than the way that they're writing Aykroyd's character, because he's he's a little inaccessible, but she's lovely. But I just love, like, poor Henry Morgan is like, what is happening? Like, they're wearing like the satanic goat, like, fawn, I don't know what that is, like leggings, I guess. But it's just hilarious. And then Elizabeth Ashley shows up out of nowhere, and it's just so good.
We got a quick correction. It was Bela Lugosi who fought the octopus.
It's not. It's Tor Johnson, and you misspelled Lugosi's name. But
yeah, he did.
Yeah, it's good.
Tracy suffers no
why he thinks that? Because in Ed Wood, Tim Burton's Ed Wood, it is the Bela Lugosi character who does that with the octopus.
But the original is Tor, and he was good with it.
Easy mistake to make, though.
Easy mistake to make. But yeah, so then you have they're trying to like set up plot, right? Jonathan Worley and Mama, the man, the movement. I don't know who Mama is. We don't get to that in the movie, I think.
They say it. It's an acronym for something. It's
Mama. Okay.
I can't remember. That was not one of the notes I took.
Yeah.
Did we talk about? Oh, okay.
I think when they're cosplaying, like, he wakes them up. It's like hilarious. It's like, get out of the car, and then you've got Hanks role playing. I don't know, Casablanca or something here. It's very, I don't know.
Yeah, it is. There's so much. Have we gotten to there's this scene that I posted it today, link to saying the show is on, with the manager of the apartment building that they go to see. Everyone refers to her as the landlord. And it was so funny to me because all these people quoted her and all this stuff. So this is probably the most favorite character in this movie. Am I wrong?
I don't know. Let's see.
I mean, I swear people knew it. I was like, oh, you remember that. But I have a clip of that manager lady. If you want, do you want me to play it?
Yeah.
All right, here it is. Here's a clip from Dragnet.
It's about time you pencil dicks showed up. Why couldn't you have gotten here before that big, bad, stupid-looking piece of sewage breath stole my wedding dress?
Miss Borden, sewage breath would be your little nickname for...
Muzz. M.O. Muzz. Not much of an improvement. That ass swipe also stiffed me for 2 months' rent when his deposit check bounced. Goddamn little ass swipe pimp dick. All that was left in his room was a big box of these things. Any idea where this Muzz could be now? Friends? Family? Nah, he was a loner. Useless scum-lapping shitbag.
Just the facts, ma'am. Did he leave anything else behind?
Yeah, his tape deck, which I sold to make up for the loss, so there's nothing you can do about it, you slimy little jizz bucket.
Yes, ma'am, but I should point out that you could be cited for swearing at us like that.
Says who, flathead?
Hillary is just leading into these actions.
I was really hoping that was going to be the scene.
Of course. She does a great job. The thing I love about that scene the most is the way they write the stream of PG-13 rated expletives.
Yes.
Is fucking hilarious. Like, they're pushing the PG-13 envelope as far as they can. Not dropping any F-bombs, but ass wipe and pimp mouth and...
Totally. And no worries. You're both right and wrong. It's two things can be true at the same time. But Bride of the Monster, like mid-50s, that's the one with Tor. And he's such a gentle giant. I want to give a shout out to Tor Johnson, because I feel like the bigger actors, they get not always the best parts, and like he really is putting his heart into this sequence, and it's just it's so obviously a plastic, and it's
right.
Just, my heart just kind of for him. But but again,
it was Bela Lugosi who fought the octopus. Yeah, okay.
Or Martin Landau, as it were.
Yeah, Martin Landau, who is amazing. That's one of my favorite Tim Burton movies, I gotta say.
I think it was the last great one.
For sure. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Beetlejuice is gonna
Are you?
No faith. I have no faith. I'm just being funny.
But I love, but you were talking about pushing the barrier, right? But it's like, he's like, hey, let's go get you some coffee. And they're like, this is the coffee. It's like, there's like every woman in this movie is just oogled and objectified. And that's it. Like the entire, like even Elizabeth Ashley, when she's hanging out.
Well, it's like even in PG-13 movies in the 80s, you had to put in a scene where the cop partners go to a strip club. Yeah. Like once that happened in Beverly Hills Cop, everybody had to do it.
Well, yeah, but then also it's this weird thing where they're clearly on the streets of Los Angeles for a lot of location shooting, and then they're on a soundstage, and it's like it's this uncomfortable. We're inside, we're outside, and then because I think this is what you were saying too, Todd, like with kind of Aykroyd coming from a sketch comedy background and being a producer on this, with Bernie Brillstein, who was his manager and all that, also producing. But like, then you have these like unfortunate, stereotypes that nothing about this scene is needed, but we spend time so that Dan Aykroyd could take a nunchuck away because of course an Asian character has a nunchuck. I mean, it's so like, why are we unnecessary?
Those are illegal. They are.
They are
illegal.
But it's just kind of, it was an odd choice for that. But then they break into like a milk factory, and again, this is like comedic set pieces with, things bursting out. Alphonse and Gaston,
I'm like, even though the milk stuff, like I wasn't laughing hysterically at it, as an actor, I watched it and I appreciated the work that Aykroyd and Hanks were doing because they were getting covered in cold, smelly liquid. That wasn't milk. It was just like had some whiteness to it. Yeah. And I imagine it was entirely unpleasant. And to try to keep up the level of comic energy you're supposed to have in this movie.
Hanks is like drinking whatever that is.
He really, I'm sure.
Lapping it up.
I'm sure that's when he got COVID. I'm sure.
Good factoid about Mr. Tor Johnson. Thank you, Jeff. I mean, it's an interesting thing. So I don't remember these in 87, but I was like, wow, it's a Dick Tracy watch. Like, that's pretty cool. Like the Seiko, did they have like tiny TV thing? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, they had miniature TVs, but I don't imagine a watch had that because it would have to be a thick watch because the TVs were tubes. Totally. So it would have to be a really big watch.
Yeah. So basically there's a series of crimes. It's a sketch comedy movie with not a lot of plot, but there's a series of crimes. People leave cards that say pagan. We now know what the pagan stands for. They're trying to create chaos. Somehow the fake evangelicals with Dabney Coleman, the I guess Hefner-esque character. You get to see, Law and Order Foundation. So they really do take shots at sacred cows, right? Politicians, cops, the priests, all of it. Everybody is a target in this movie.
Which is good. I think it's good. I wish the jokes had been better.
Yeah.
Because it's good fodder, especially in the 80s.
And then the Brown Derby, this was never the Brown Derby. But they resurrected the sign so to make it, to bring it into that because the Brown Derby was a thing in the 50s that would have been a big deal. But I thought that was a cool choice that they did that little touch to old Hollywood.
Yes, totally. I am forever sad that I never got to experience the Brown Derby.
I know. It's one of those sad. Like, yeah. Let's see. That's the display. The rest is the pot. Oh, there you. Okay. All right. That's good to know. It actually existed, but too expensive. Okay, so the character could probably afford it. All right.
Wow. Okay.
Good check.
Next thing he's going to tell us is that electric cars existed at the same time as gas-powered ones. Oh,
they did.
No.
At the birth of we could have gone Edsel or electric, and they killed it.
Yeah. I blame David Bowie.
Really?
Well, he played Tesla in that movie, so.
Okay. That's as good a theory as any, Todd. Okay. So, they go out, and you've got this great thing where Dan Aykroyd, takes his mother out. The mother is so excited because it looks like he has a date, which is a new thing. And we've got the cute ingenue moment. Then we've got our two villains kind of together hanging out with their accent.
I thought about doing this scene too as an Anderson family reenactment, but we didn't have time to go out. We would have had to go to a park or something.
Yeah.
But like just to have those two guys, these sort of legendary character actors, doing these completely stupid character choices at each other.
Girls, this movie's my favorite. I don't believe that for a second, but hey, Steve.
It's like Heat. It's like Christopher Plummer and Dabney Coleman in this movie at that.
Oh my God, or like Pacino and De Niro. Come on.
Yeah,
on
it's
now.
the same. It's the same. Not as disappointing in Dragnet as it is in Heat. But
Well, slightly different buildup perhaps as well. But one of my favorite conceits about this movie is the idea that the corrupt priest / paganist just takes over apparently. Yes, Georgia. Oh, he takes over Griffith Observatory at night, apparently, where, you know, he could just like tie up people and give monologues with this gay affectation. It's the weirdest thing. I'm like, why is the paganist taking over the conservatory at night and tying up a police officer with the Virgin?
It's what Satanists do. Satanist pagans.
I don't.
It's like, how much ridiculous stuff can we cram into one film?
I just
Really?
Did someone have a friend that was like, dude, I can get you a free night permit? I mean, is that how that happened? Because it makes zero freaking literary sense. But again,
Maybe these people who made this movie are the ones who need therapy.
No,
I don't know.
See, just exactly. But I love that again. You've got like now we have a motorcycle kind of action scene, and then we get to blinded by the white scene here. Big hair, no missing. This is an '80s situation, but there's like this big party, right? So they're going to try to take down whatever's going on here. So hard to follow. All of a sudden, Harry Morgan shows up and is like, Dan, you were right. Here's your gun. Here's your badge. Actually, he never gives him the gun, but it's implied. That was a oopsie. And then Dan's like, oh, that's so great. I'm back because I have no personality without being a cop. I had to do a freeze frame of this, y'all. 71 cents for gasoline in 1987.
Yep.
Holy shit.
You want to...
In Los Angeles.
Yeah, I took it a step further. And standard inflation today makes that $2.01, but current gas averages $4.48 in Los Angeles. So thank you. We have some proof that prices have increased farther than.
Yeah.
It's price gouging. We're getting fucked by the oil industry.
OPEC is like, it's an election year. And
why can't our government do anything about it? I don't know. It's probably because of the Republicans.
Probably.
And other people dragging their feet. Yeah.
That's usually the right answer. Okay, Stephen's
and the evangelicals.
Says to the centerfold, right, that he remembers every detail.
Yes. It's so funny, and it makes his character
He's so charming.
It makes his character also an incel, kind of.
Except that he has women voluntarily with him, like the hot blonde.
I know. I just didn't understand why Tom Hanks' character would know that much, would have a centerfold memorized.
Well, wasn't that like I feel like that was another joke in 80s movies all the time where like, this is Miss May, her favorite movie's Amadeus, and she like or whatever.
Best use of that is in the 1990s straight to video sequel to Tremors called Tremors 2 Aftershocks. And Fred Ward is because Kevin Bacon didn't come back, but Fred Ward and Michael Gross did, and Fred Ward has a whole romance, and he recognizes her as an older playmate,
right?
And it's really delightful, actually.
It is. I mean, it's true. But there's like a whole scene in this movie, right, where they're like, "Oh, you're the original playwright," and she's like, "Does this look like the body of a 45-year-old?" And it's like, it's a PG movie. You can't show the breasts, and it just holds like maybe 5 beats too long. So you're like, like from a comedy standpoint, it's this like, she's like, oh, that was great for me. And I'm like, no woman ever said that. I mean, it's just like, but like, this again, male.
Actually, that raises a good question because I imagine they shot her.
Oh,
naked. I'm sure there was a topless shot. This is a PG-13 movie, and PG-13 movies in the 80s got boob shots. You look at Back to School, Rodney Dangerfield accidentally opens a lady's shower and he closes it, and then he opens it and says, "By the way, you look great," with his giant eyes. And you're like, oh my God, that would be the worst thing I've ever seen.
That would be traumatizing. Like Rodney Dangerfield right after Mrs. Bates. I don't want to see that. That's
no.
But one of my favorite Rodney Dangerfield lines is in From Back to School, where he was like being a little self-effacing about his inability to have a good romantic life, and he's like, "I was an earth sign, she was a water sign. Together we made mud." It was like, he just had
Back to School is awesome. I love that movie.
And wasn't Oingo Boingo the band, the house band was Oingo?
Yeah, that played at the frat party.
Yeah, it's like I like that. I have to go see that movie again now. Anyway, we're wrapping up. So pagans, things are bad, have to solve the crisis. Somehow we kidnap again this girl. Not since Sydney Bristow has someone been kidnapped so often and so easily. So that's happening, and then we've got like gay priests looking her up and down, and you're like, I don't know what's going on. And then all of a sudden, the LAPD apparently has like fighter pilots, which I'm pretty sure wasn't the case even in '87. But it's so charming to protect and serve.
Maybe Christopher Plummer is not trying to like make a gay stereotype. Hear me out for a sec. Maybe his weird, nervous laugh and ticky behavior is he's imitating Amanda Plummer.
Oh, his daughter. Wow. That's a deep. Well, it's funny because I think I was texting this to you last night when I was watching it, Todd, but there's a moment where like he really is like, well, this and that. And it's a little bosom buddies like that guy. Right.
Yeah,
but it's funny because the great Christopher Plummer finally wins an Oscar for Mike Mills' Beginners, which if you haven't seen is a gorgeous film. It's a beautiful father-son film where basically it's Ewan McGregor playing Plummer's kid or Plummer's son, and Plummer decides that he's gay in his like later years, and it's this really beautiful thing. And if you're a dog person, the dog talks. It's so cute. But the idea that Plummer is one of those elegant, like if you're not crying at the end of the Mills film, like I got nothing for you. It's such a gorgeous performance. And I remember when Plummer got the Oscar, he had this great thing where he's like, "Oh, my lady, I've been waiting for you. I'm even older than you are." He did this like kind of thing about he's been around about as long as the Oscars, and he was just such a gentleman. But I see this movie, and I'm sure he showed up to set like, "Well, I got an SNL player, so I'm gonna do."
Well, no, but that's what that's one of the things I like about this movie, and it it can be a comedic miss, in the moment. But I do like how all these great character actors did commit to, we're making a Dan Aykroyd movie. We've seen the other Dan Aykroyd movies, and we want to do what Dan Aykroyd wants to do.
Right.
And I think that's what an actor does. You get on board. As soon as you're hired, it doesn't matter. You don't judge it. You get on board and you're a team player immediately.
But it's also about, and I think this is so hard for any script, right? Those of us who've written, but like specifically comedy, like finding a tone, leaning into the tone, staying in the tone, especially when you have these many profoundly talented people. This cast is full of just ridiculously talented, great people. I think that's a really hard thing to achieve. But then you also have this crazy, like just as a producer, looking at the production value of this shot, like. Yeah. We're shut down some runway. We've got how many cop cars? We've got a jet. I mean, just for like, it's a quick shot. And then, we're off to like, oh, he's going to take home, the great Connie Swale. And then because they've kind of forgotten the show that the target audience had probably never seen. But then there's the wrap up where, he's like, oh, and then we arrested him and now he's in jail. This is how it's fictional, that the corrupt religious person's in jail and not hiding with you. But, and then he gets the hot blonde is back, with her TJ Hooker-esque, hair. It's very of that Heather, remember the Heathers that was like Thomas and Locklear?
Heather Thomas and Heather Locklear were all over my walls.
I feel like a lot of young men of a certain age, it would have been the two Heathers and probably Phoebe Cates in Fast Times in that red swimsuit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there were the movie ones, but the TV ones, and Heather Thomas is still my favorite. Not because I thought she was the prettiest one. She's my favorite because she's so politically charged right now, and 100% hates Trump. And, I don't want to like pick on her acting ability, but watching The Fall Guy, I didn't think this woman's not going to get an Emmy or an Oscar or anything like that. She's just pretty and it's fine. But she's fucking smart. She's a genius.
She's charming for sure.
Yeah. All I'm saying is, like, I'm an idiot because I thought because she was that beautiful, she couldn't be as smart as she is.
Well, that's the messaging, right? Amber, a lot of us grew up with, like, we all grew up with, everyone wanted to play Charlie's Angels on the playground. I was a little stoked because I always wanted to be Kate Jackson because she was the smart one who solved the cases while the other two brushed their hair in bikinis, right? So I was like, I relate to Kate Jackson. She's like my people. But Kate is also wearing turtlenecks and like scarves and what. And then when Kate Jackson pieces out, like after the second season, she's like, guys, this is getting too dumb for me. I'm going to go do Scarecrow and Mrs. King and be whatever. Then they like promoted Jacqueline Smith to being the smart one who solves the cases. And then, and so then she was starting to wear the turtlenecks. I'm like, but the messaging was you can either be smart or you can be the sexy one. And I'm like, they're all sexy.
But you can't be both.
But you should be able to be both.
Yes.
But I just felt like, and again, I don't want to read too much into a show that was known as a jiggle show. I presumably because they never bought a bra. But like, again, it's one of those messages as a young girl. You're like, huh. It's like it's kind of there for you. But so they wrap it up, and this is one of those films that I think had it been creatively more effective, you could have done sequels. Like you could have
they wanted it to be a franchise.
It felt like that at the end,
Yeah. Sure.
Anyway, so I know Amber actually has to save lives after this experience with us. But Amber, do you have closing thoughts about this movie, revisiting it? How did you feel about it then? How did you feel about watching it now? Talk to people who maybe haven't seen it if they should. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was so fun, so ridiculous and silly. I think some of the stuff that I really pulled out of it was like the tank that has the little image at the end that says like "Have a nice day" or something. Yeah. I'm like, and then there's some kind of thing in the beginning. I was just thinking a lot about this with some of our modern day challenges and issues. But there's some comments. Maybe it's Friday who says something about like, oh, you expect me to do this when we could save the taxpayers' money? And I literally wrote down like, what you expect me to think that a cop cares about spending my taxpayer money? Like, I don't believe that for a second. Like, and definitely not in the 1980s.
Yes, yeah.
So I don't know. I still think I really like your point that it feels like a bunch of comedy skits kind of sewn together because that does really fit. Like, don't expect some kind of revelation when you watch it, but it's just really fun. Yeah. And here's another thing, like what I was thinking from a mental health perspective, is that character, Friday, Dan Aykroyd's character, feels very autistic, like what we would really kind of easily recognize today as autistic.
Maybe on the spectrum. But
yes, and like low support needs as one of the things that we say. And interestingly enough, he identifies as on the spectrum, Dan Aykroyd. I don't think he's been officially diagnosed, but self-diagnosis is fine, and a common thing because it's hard to get assessments. But I was just like, oh, this is so interesting. This like just the facts, blah, 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 and doing everything in a very rigid fashion.
An interesting thing in general when you think about his performances and the way he is. It's an interesting concept.
But you're right, Amber, because his whole like Ghostbusters character is the same character in a way where he's like, oh, you've never been out there. They expect results and the great
trading places the same. Yeah. He's like he's really good at playing.
I think you're right, Amber. I think that's
I read something that he even said that he sort of credits his own, one of the things we say is special interests. So he credits his own special interest in ghosts and police as helping create Ghostbusters.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and Ghostbusters, when he wrote it, it wasn't a joke. It wasn't a comedy.
Right.
And it was like 500 pages long, and it was actually about paranormal investigators. And then somebody was like, you should make this into a comedy. So he changed it. There's not, like, Dan Aykroyd to me is so fascinating because I don't think he ever like was the lead performer that he wanted to be.
Right.
But his choices were always interesting, and his creative mind was always very interesting to me. And that's why I wanted to. I want to see the 5-hour cut of the Blues Brothers. I know there's, if it exists, it's like some old guy in the Midwest has it, and I hope in a fridge or something. I don't know where you keep film, but because I want to see it, but apparently it's lost. But there is like a 5-hour cut of Blues Brothers.
Wow. Well, I'm so glad you brought this. It was a nice revisit. I remember, random factoid, I believe it was the first film to ever be on the cover of Premiere magazine. Premiere was a French magazine, and then they launched it over here, and a lot of us collected it because you used to have the mini posters that came inside.
Yeah, I got Premiere magazine when it was my favorite. I missed that. I missed like generalized movie magazines. Now we have genre stuff that you have to pay a lot for. But I missed that.
That was it. That was the very first cover, was Dragnet when that premiered. So
that's awesome.
Very good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Amber, thank you so much. We got you out in time.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun. And yay. Have a great night.
Call Amber if you need to get your head fixed.
She
got a website.
You can, AmberKeating.net.
AmberKeating.net. Just look her up and get fixed.
All right. Bye, all.
Bye, Amber. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I guess we'll do our things. Should we start with the Be Bad or Be Best?
Yes.
All right. Do you want to give me yours and I'll show me yours and I'll show you mine?
I will. Be Bad, Be Best. This came out in March of this year. At the time I was away, it opened and closed, and I was like, oh, I'm a Gen Xer, I should see this. So I finally caught up with it this weekend. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Be Bad, Be Best. Todd.
Well, Tracy, I'm going to be honest with you. I've watched this now 1.5 times because I watched it by myself one day because, depression's
it's a Ghostbusters movie.
It's Ghostbusters, and I'm nostalgic for it. And even though I hated Afterlife,
same.
I did like 2016, and I was like, maybe there'll be jokes in this one. There are not. It's way worse than Afterlife.
Yes.
It's, and I've watched it 1.5 times because Hillary was like, "Oh, it's on Netflix." I was like, "Yeah, all right, yeah, put it on." And she finished it on her own on a plane when she was out of town with her friends. So that worked out great. But it's like, I thought there couldn't be something worse than Afterlife, and this is absolutely worse. It's so fucking boring.
I was shocked at how bad it was. And it was one of those things where I'm like, am I going to make it through? And I thought, well, I'm a Gen X. I'm going to get through. I'm going to watch it all. But yeah, I was really disappointed because you and I think agree on this. Like, 2016 is fun. I mean, I'm not saying it's flawless, but in a world where Ghostbusters 2 exists, everyone needed to settle down about Lady Ghostbusters. It was very fun.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's crazy that people still hate on the 2016 Ghostbusters.
The only good Ghostbusters since the original. I mean, I
know people who love Afterlife and think 2016 is shit, and I don't understand that at all.
There's a Venn diagram of like they're in a cult. I don't know.
And what we're talking about after the original Ghostbusters, which should have been a standalone comedy and left alone and never touched again.
Agree.
But they made Ghostbusters 2 because money, and then all the other ones, and none of them are good. I mean, let's just be honest. None of them are good movies, but there's one
that who
has more of a good joke to narrative ratio than any of the others. And sad to say, for all you fucking people who hate 2016, it's the 2016 one with the ladies.
Yeah,
they're being funny. They're being funny.
There was a fundraiser that director Paul Feig and screenwriter Katie Dippold together, they presented it at the it's the theater on Wilshire Boulevard, and they were raising funds to, fight fascism. And so, I went with a bunch of friends, and I think 2 of my pals that went with us had not seen it in the theaters and were expecting nothing because everyone was trouncing on.
Mm-hmm.
they don't even like comedies, and they were laughing their ass off at this. And it wasn't just because we were raising money for a good cause. It was literally like, this film works. And when you're in a theater, infectious, this is where comedy also plays better in the theater than at home by yourself. But I was like, God, it really is as good as I saw it opening day, and I loved it. Again, flaws and all, but it entertained me, which is that's the assignment.
Yeah, that's all. And the original Ghostbusters is also got a disjointed quality to it.
Yeah, that's okay.
It like lurches around, but it's fun, and they're making comedy out of every scene.
Yeah.
Which is and like, knowing what I know about Aykroyd and the way he originally envisioned Ghostbusters, it's almost like the franchise has gone in the direction that he originally wanted it to go, which is not a comedy. Right. It's people fighting ghosts, which is fine. But the problem is this now is a franchise that started as a very funny comedy.
Yeah.
And in no small way, because Bill Murray was fucking really funny in Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
And to me, the only sequel that's like come close to the spirit of the original, because Ghostbusters 2 doesn't have enough jokes. It's all about the supernatural occurrences. And occasionally, I mean, you get Peter McNichol is the only guy in that movie. Yeah. He's the only one who seems to know, oh yeah, no, this is supposed to be funny.
Yeah. And he's just good scenery.
The Afterlife and Frozen Empire, it's like they just didn't bother writing jokes.
Oh,
Paul Rudd in those movies is rudderless.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, when you can make him not charming, it's like, I usually love him, and I'm like, he's not.
Oh my God. Yeah, I love him too. And I don't think he's uncharming in the movie, but
we don't care. It's the kiddification of Ghostbusters, which I have a problem with. Afterlife and this one play like really uninspired Stranger Things episodes. I don't care about someone's stepkids in this. I want the Ghostbusters. I want the professionals together. I don't care about Carrie Coon meeting up with Paul Rudd. At least they went back to New York and they got him out of like middle of nowhere, Utah, or wherever the first film was set. But it's like, it's supposed to be in Manhattan. It's supposed to be in the city. People would remember things, and there's just no logic. There's no attention to detail. There's way too much money spent on these special effects and no character stuff. And it's like, poor, what's his face? Finland, Wolfhound, Gesundheit, whatever, the kid from Stranger Things. Like, his entire role is like, I'm playing with Slimer, and there's no payoff. You could lift every scene and you'd miss nothing. And that whole film feels so inspired. So if Dragnet is a series of SNL skits that don't necessarily connect, but at least there's moments of levity and like, oh my God, that's so crazy. This Ghostbusters is like, there's no connection.
I agree. It's a pure flat line.
Yeah.
I would say.
What's your be bad, be best?
Yeah. It is this, the aforementioned Who Knows You're Alone.
Yeah.
The slasher film that Tom Hanks appears in. Is it Be Bad or Be Best for you?
Be best. It's trashy. It's terrible. It's just so sick and violent. Just misogynistic in all the slasher ways. I loved it. I saw it as a kid. So I have no hate for this. And it's fun to see Tom Hanks, starting out.
Yeah. It's a slasher film. It's therefore not necessarily good. It's just sort of pornographic trash in a lot of ways. If there is it would have been a perfect slasher narrative had Tom Hanks not been involved.
Right.
Because Tom Hanks's character, they didn't kill because they liked him too much, but it was written originally that he should die.
Yeah.
And I think it's a huge problem with the movie, because at a certain point they already were done with Tom Hanks, but they decided let's not kill him. So they didn't kill him in the editing room. And then his character's just where it's like, it's not even as good as the redheaded guy in Friday the 13th Part 2 stays at the bar.
Yeah.
At least he's at the bar. But in this movie, you're like, where's Tom Hanks?
Yeah, and because he's Tom Hanks, you notice more.
Yeah.
Like, back in the day, you would have been like, oh, that's just a plot hole. But now you're like, no, really, where's Tom Hanks?
Those things do bother me. If a character, what was my favorite example is the kid in the show Lost. And like in the first couple seasons, he was supposed to be sort of a Jesus-like figure. He was connected to some supernatural thing. And then he just stopped being on the show. They were like, we're done. And I was like, I thought he was Jesus.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why people do that.
No. All right. Well, that's fun. The one I wanted to, I guess, the boost. It doesn't need me to
Oh yeah,
boost.
we're doing the boost.
Yeah, I guess like most of America went to go see Deadpool and Wolverine this weekend. I have not, I have dipped out of the Marvel universe. I don't care. I didn't tear up at Endgame, sorry. I've worked on Marvel films and the new ones are so bad I've become just not interested in them, to be honest. And I had heard good things. I love Ryan Reynolds. I think he's super funny, and I like that he's a fan of the character, and that he was like the lead writer. He gets credited. I'm like, okay, I will go support this because I like Hugh Jackman. Those guys are incredibly easy to watch. It's so fun. It's so meta. It's like I would put it up there with the script. It's kind of like what Kevin Williamson did, that sleight of hand trick with Scream, where he's basically dissecting and deconstructing the formula for a great slasher film from the 80s as he's making a really good one in 95. And I think that's a really hard thing. Whereas I think this one is he's deconstructing and calling out all the baggage that Marvel now has as he's actually making an honest to God clever film about Marvel. But they take shots at Disney. They take shots at Kevin Feige, who's a producer on the film. They take shots at 20th Century Fox. Jennifer Garner has a wink to Ben Affleck. There's a joke about Hugh Jackman's divorce. There's so much meta stuff going on. And there are, without giving anything away if you haven't seen it, there are cameos from films, the lesser films before they were the universe, before they were a studio, and there were one-offs at New Line often, that I just kind of, even though I don't have a nostalgia necessarily for those films anymore, I found myself caring in this film because it was so smart and so well done. Oh, it is nice to see that character back, and it is nice to see them together. And Reynolds has this perfect comedic timing where he could just, if you don't like this joke, in 2 seconds there's another one, and it just comes together. The music in this, the needle drops of like Gen X songs, it's so clever. Anytime you're doing a bloody, sequence to like a Madonna song, come on. It's like they know what they're having fun. So I wanted to say, you know what, I'm often pissed off at how dumb studio films have become. This is a good one. This deserves to make all the money. It leaned into a hard R, which I also would like to see back. So it's a hard R, violent, crude, funny as can be, inside baseball if you want, if not just entertaining film. And it services fans, but it works even for people like me who have kind of taken a step back from Marvel. I'm thrilled for its success, and I would hope for this level of fun and writing and other studio pictures.
I'm definitely fatigued by superheroes, but that does sound fun. It'll be interesting to see how this movie stands the test of time, because that's sort of the thing about like meta movies. But what you're saying is, I think is that they're, whoever, Ryan Reynolds or whoever, is very smart about keeping the jokes rapid fire, like a Zucker Brothers movie from the 80s.
Right.
So if one doesn't work within the minute, there'll be 3 other ones that do.
Yes.
So,
and I felt like the night before I had sat through Frozen Empire, and I'm like, this is what I hate about what studio films have become. And then I saw this one, I went, there's still hope, and it was so, it was like interesting to see them back to back. And I do think there will be some dated references people won't get. It's like kind of like, we love Robin Williams, but his Aladdin is so dated because he was doing contemporary jokes that don't play anymore.
Right.
And so it is more dated than like, say, Beauty and the Beast that came out like 5 or 6 years before. So I think that's always a danger, but I have a feeling there's such a cult around Marvel, and the pop culture references are so, for a minute it's gonna live. But yeah, 30 years from now,
it'll be interesting too, because if they did a good job of the jokes and the narrative, even though it's meta, it should, like you said, it should be entertaining to somebody who doesn't know the inside baseball jokes.
Right.
So there's the inside baseball jokes, but those will just wash over you because there's plenty of other actual just universal jokes that are. So
I'm like, without giving anything away because it's been splattered everywhere, right? So Jennifer Garner shows back up as Elektra. So you have Ryan Reynolds who's like, oh, and are you like Wonder Woman or what's going on? And she's like, no, I'm Elektra. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry about Daredevil. And she's like, that's okay. Well, with Ben Affleck of it all, you're like, okay, like, but she's, like her children are with Daredevil and she's like in on the joke and you're like, I love this. Like, it just, you know what I mean? So that will always work on that level. But like right now, particularly with the latest, debacle, that the poor press need to stop hounding all those actors. But like regardless, but there's things like that. Like, why isn't Wolverine taking off the shirt? Well, he's really let himself go after the divorce. I'm like, are you making fun of Hugh's recent divorce? I mean, like, it's in the movie, but it's so fast that you can miss it. But if you pick it up, you're like, oh, okay, yeah. So I don't know. There's a wit to this that I appreciate.
I want to see it. I look forward to it. I always want to go see, especially R-rated studio movies in the theater. Yeah. I've always felt compelled to do that, even when I wasn't allowed to see R-rated movies, because, regardless of the genre, you get more of what you want if the gloves are off. If you don't have to worry about offending Christians, then you're going to have fun.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. shout out from Jeff. Yes. Yeah. I mean, that was a good show. I mean,
I got to reach out to my friend Joel Stouffer, who was on that show. And he was also in the Crystal Skull, your favorite Indiana Jones picture.
Oh my God. The worst.
Yeah. Joel's great. I'll see if I can get him to do the show. My boost. I was just trying to pick, because they picked a Tom Hanks movie for the Be Bad, Be Best. I was trying to find a buddy, like, cop comedy movie based on an old TV show. I thought about 21 Jump Street. I don't think that needs boosting. So I remembered this movie, which I have a copy of, which was critically reviled. It totally tanked. And for some reason, people hate it. And I'm telling you, I have a good time every time I watch it. It's silly and stupid, like Dragnet, and it's R-rated, so it's got the inappropriate jokes, of a Deadpool. It's Chips, and people have their problems with Dax Shepard, and that's fine. He's a weirdo, but his motorcycle joy in this movie is palpable.
Yeah.
And Michael Pena plays a great, cop partner foil to him, and they both learn stuff about themselves through each other. But, so you get that narrative that you need, I guess, from a Hollywood movie. But mostly it's just silly and stupid, and the jokes are dumb. I mean, this movie made Hillary laugh so hard she cried at a particular moment. So, if you didn't give it a chance when it first came out, or maybe you walked into it with a prejudice and you weren't willing to accept it for its stupidness, I just give it another shot. I guess that's all I'm saying. Give it another shot. Because it's delightful enough if you're Todd and kind of dumb.
That's funny.
So the Indie Effect. Do you want me to go first?
On the Indie Effect? Do it.
So this is a character that if the character was removed from the movie, it wouldn't change the narrative at all. So I was watching, speaking of buddy comedies, I was watching one of my faves, Role Models.
Oh my God.
A few nights ago. Have you ever seen that?
I don't think so. No, but I remember the poster.
Oh my God. This is a very fun, really funny R-rated, but also sweet comedy. If you like Paul Rudd, this is great. If you like Sean William Scott, this is great. They're great together. It's a really good movie. And the supporting cast is amazing. The kids are amazing. You have McLovin in there. He's the main kid. And it's also unapologetically silly and stupid. It's not trying to make you think, it's just trying to make you laugh. And there aren't enough of those movies now. But in this movie, there is a character who is one of two tow truck drivers So they're partner tow truck drivers. And I would say that in my experience, there are very few tow truck driving partnerships. It's usually just one tow truck driver,
Right.
regardless of the size of the tow truck and the vehicle that's being towed.
Right.
But in this one, there's two, and one of them is this guy.
Oh, God.
And he's listed as security guard. Maybe that's what he was. He falls down a couple times and makes faces, but it's entirely unnecessary. I don't know why he's in the movie. I don't know why he wasn't cut out of the movie, because I know a lot was cut out of this movie because it's an improv-y David Wayne movie. It's that kind of movie. Why he got cut in was there was some level of friendship somewhere. But if you had not seen, and it only matters now, it only matters post
Right.
jacking off Louis CK. But it's like the movie didn't need it, and it definitely doesn't need it now.
Right.
They should do a director's cut where they just remove CK. Nobody will notice. It's still a hilarious movie. Get rid of him.
I love it. And Jeff has a good one. Bob Barker and Happy Gilmore.
Oh, for sure. I mean, but then that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, if Louis C.K. had come in and like done this great cameo bit which was fucking hilarious, like Bronson Pinchot and Beverly Hills Cop or something like that,
Right.
I'd have been all for it. It's not necessary, but it's funny. Bob Barker in that movie, whatever you think of Adam Sandler movies, is a comic bit, and it's funny to see Bob Barker curse.
Yeah.
That's just funny. It's just funny to me, but not necessary to the narrative, but what in that movie is.
Well, there's that process. Yeah, mine, I just, I was thinking about loving the Marvel movie, the Deadpool and Wolverine. And I was like, why am I so off to things that I used to love as a kid? And I think it's the exploitation of things that made me fall in love with movies when I was a kid, like Alien. I'm sadly not excited to see Romulus. I will go see it because if I can sit through Alien Covenant, I can sit through anything. But I'm not excited about it. And I'm like, I don't know if it's just that Ridley's two prequels didn't do it for me. I think Resurrection has interesting moments for Sigourney's character, and the hybrid thing was interesting, but the film itself, I think, has obviously some stuff. I actually defend Alien 3. I think it's interesting, but like I get why people wanted more aliens, which of course is unassailable. But I was like, why am I so off to this? And it comes back to, which is maybe why some of the jokes and there are a lot of them at Disney's expense in Deadpool versus Wolverine. It's because I think I grew up, in Orange County. We would go to Disneyland back when it was affordable for a family to do so. We had a pass that was $100 for a year, and there weren't.
That's
days.
crazy. What are those, like $4,000?
Totally, and there weren't blackout days. You could just go. I mean, it was really there for family.
Amazing.
But there was a thing called Imagineering, right, where Walt Disney would create and innovate and create. And now I just kind of feel like we don't have that anymore. And it's like Disney has bought Star Wars. Disney has bought Pixar. Disney has bought Marvel. And there's something that's not as satisfying to me. And so I've been off to Star Wars for a while, even though I loved, New Hope when I was a kid. And I think it helps to have been 5. And, Empire Strikes Back is the best, and I love it. And I love the opening to Return of the Jedi. Beyond that, I
love the chases in the redwood forests. That's pretty great.
Teddy bears were very cute. I had them.
I like Ewoks. I don't care. I'm sick of people shitting on Ewoks. They're fine.
Cute. I had bigger problems with turning Darth Vader into a nice guy, but that's neither here nor there. But for me, a beloved character from my childhood that I don't think he actually ever does anything but annoy, would have to be C-3PO.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't do anything. Like R2-D2 does most of the work. R2-D2 is like, he's in the X-Wing fighter. He can have the messages from, Leia and this and that. He can plug into things when he needs to. C-3PO just walks around with him like as this annoying sidekick.
And I guess you're right, because
I don't think he does.
R2-D2 says stuff and human beings understand what his boops and beeps mean.
Yeah.
And at first I was gonna Well, C-3PO is kind of an interpreter, but you're right. He's not a needed interpreter.
He doesn't do anything. So, I mean, he's there.
And
I
I'm
guess
pretty sure the actor, Anthony Daniels, is miserable as C-3PO, and he hates it.
Yeah.
But kept doing it for money. So, we could have done him a huge favor and just not had him in the movie.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I think he's yeah. So again, he's a beloved figure. We all had the action figures growing up, when I was like, what does he actually do to the narrative?
He doesn't. He's
nothing would be different.
What is that? R2D2 and C-3PO are like, especially with the first one, they're sort of the lens that you see the narrative through. So what is that called? That's got to have a name.
But it's really Luke. That's, you know what I mean?
Well, it's Luke that we're focused on, but we don't know about Luke or anything else until we know them, and they're always involved in everything, especially in the first one. Really, the first three, they're there.
They're there, but I don't think they drive any action.
No, I don't disagree, but I wonder if it's it's like a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern type of deal.
Maybe. I don't know. I just think I think George Lucas doesn't necessarily have a great sense of humor. I mean, see Howard the Duck or don't. Like, I think he just doesn't do comedy.
I will, and I will laugh at it every time for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, the duck condom was a particular highlight in his career. But hey, safe sex, everybody. Yeah, I don't know, man, but it was like, I was like, oh yeah, and I just was thinking back to like how much I really loved those action figures, and I feel like I would do little short films with them and the alien and the Smurfs. Like, yeah, I was combining universes before with school, but like I just was like, yeah, he doesn't really do anything, because it's hard to kind of think of the indie effect, because if you're doing your job, the characters should matter. So it's an interesting.
But I don't think you're wrong. I think you're right. If it was just R2D2, nothing would change.
Yeah,
that's the truth about partnerships in movies. A lot of
sent by Obi-Wan didn't tell Owen Lars to buy R2D2. Then the message never.
Okay. So he talks Uncle Owen into buying R2D2, and that's why it matters. Okay.
All right.
That's totally true. But you could also have had. You could also have had a good salesman character just sell the fucking robot.
Yeah, because it's still R2D2 doing the thing. But yeah, I mean, I just think he's clunky. But it's, again, I wouldn't be having those.
There's nothing about Star Wars, if you really look at it, that isn't clunky, but we love it anyway. And that's sort of
on it. I mean, it's like when it's like how the music that you fell in love with up until like first to 25.
Yeah, it's right.
Too.
I get so confused when people get mad about like a new Star Wars having transgender characters or whatever. You're ruining my childhood. And I'm like, dude, your childhood wasn't that great. If you really look at the old movie, it's fun. It's just a dumb fucking popcorn movie. The kind of thing that Harrison Ford hates. So, like, have a sense of humor about going forward. Who cares?
Yeah,
it's just a dumb Star Wars show or movie.
There's a toxicity to the Star Wars fandom that it's very different than Star Trek fandom.
It doesn't make sense, because Star Trek is a way more intellectually realized sci-fi parable that can work metaphorically and all that stuff. Whereas Star Wars is just a serialized entertainment all jammed together at once and thrown at you in one, under 2 hour period, at least in the good old days. But I like getting upset about a new Star Wars character or narrative. It makes no sense to me, because the first one's not great as a movie. It's
made for children, so it's okay to be older and not care about Star Wars without saying anything. It's like, it's not really made for you. But if you have a love of the universe and you want to dip back into those characters, like The Force Awakens, which is like a remake of The New Hope, cool. It's nice to see them, the big three, back together for a final time, and it works. It's fine. But like, I think if you're getting really angry and you're trolling people and you're just being awful online because it's like, I see that sometimes on my alien boards where I'm like, wow. They're like, well, I have a question. I think I found a plot hole no one's thought of before. And then someone posts something and there's like 1,000 people who like, descend on this guy. And you're just like,
why? What is
I
wrong?
don't know. Like, enjoy the films or don't. Like, I have
Yeah,
no problem avoiding Marvel films.
Walk away. If you don't like Expendables movies, you don't have to see Expendaforbles. You don't need to.
But not everything is made for you. It's like, we talk about with comedies, like Adam Sandler films aren't for me. I don't get angry at Adam Sandler. I think he's super talented. When he shows up in like a drama, like Uncut Gems, I'm like, give him an Oscar. He's fabulous. I don't. It's just that his brand of silly humor. It's just not funny.
Yeah, and I do like dumb stuff. Yeah. I do like dumb stuff.
I'm not angry at him. It's like it's good for him, and he employs his friends, and he treats people well. Good. More people.
Yeah, I was never like a Julia Roberts person. I never understood the star power of Julia Roberts. It just didn't work for me, but I didn't hate her for it.
No.
I just wanted to figure it out.
Yeah.
That's all.
But it's also having a sense of humor about that, which is I think another thing I liked about Deadpool and Wolverine, because like Reynolds will he breaks the fourth wall in essentially a Marvel movie, and he will mock some films that he did that are opposite of Marvel, but he's like, oh, I can gently do the fourth wall, and it's like so funny, and it's like he's making fun of himself, he's making fun of everything,
he's making fun of the biz. That's a
good thing, and I think a little bit more of a sense of humor about what we do and not taking things so seriously.
Were there any references that he made to being in the remake of the Amityville Horror?
No, but he does have a joke.
So there's a problem that I have with this movie. If you're gonna make fun of the movies and yourself,
he's got a lot of movies to make fun of, but like you'll see, he does a pretty good job.
Does he make fun? Does he mention Waiting at all? The film Waiting?
No, he does make fun of The Proposal, and I laughed out loud. And I love The Proposal, but the way he does it, you're like, oh, that's.
Is there any Van Wilder jokes?
Yes. Yeah.
There are Van Wilder.
There's a reference.
All right. God bless. If they're financially successful, you can make fun of them, but not the Amityville Horror. Oh yeah, Green Lantern. But he already made fun of Green Lantern in the old Deadpool movies, right?
It's true. It's true. But like, there's a lot to make fun of in Green Lantern.
Oh yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah. Also written by the screenwriter who got you Alien Covenant, or one of the 5. But yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's too
Michael
bad.
Green. He's written some really look up his credits. Look.
All right. I mean, I don't want to hate on a guy.
No, I don't. You can't hate on him because he's made millions doing. Again, look up his credits.
How does that happen? Who are these people's representatives? This is my main question. I need a representative who can make someone who's not very good a millionaire.
I think you are very good, and you need someone who can get you out there.
Thank you kindly, Tracy, but I need someone to attack it as they do these other people.
I think sometimes, like I have been fortunate to work with pretty fancy writers and then really young writers, and there are some writers that are so good in a room but can't really execute on the page, and then there are some that are so brilliant in terms of writing, but they can't sell themselves in a room to save their lives. And so a lot of times they'll bring in different writers to be like, oh, this guy's great with structure. Oh, this gal is really good with dialogue. Oh, this blah, blah, blah. And so sometimes it works. Sometimes you have someone like the great Carrie Fisher was one of the most incredible script doctors. She'd get like $150,000 a week and bring wit with her and would elevate things that you wouldn't think that she was uncredited on, but she did because she had that kind of skill and talent. And then there are other folks that I've seen sell things in a room, and then you get the script and you're like, was that what you pitched? Like, it's like, so it's always it's alchemy.
You're right. It's a crapshoot. It
is. And also because, especially with feature film development, you could be selling it to a buyer, and then the people who bought it aren't there by the time you've done 20 drafts, and each new installment, they want to slightly change it so that it doesn't even bear a resemblance to what you pitched that they wanted.
Right.
And I've seen writers really be destroyed by a system that where the new folks sometimes just feel like either they think they actually have a better idea or they have to put their imprimatur on it. And it's like, like if you're going to hire this writer, let the writer be the writer. It's like, like if you're going to put, I don't want to be mean, but like if you're going to put Jessica Alba, let's say, in a remake of Sophie's Choice, I'm going to assume you're not serious about really getting that right. Right?
Have you watched Trigger Warning yet?
Oh, I have a friend who wrote one of the early drafts who is a good example of he didn't get to finish what he started. And I read the original spec script, which was awesome. Yeah. And then I've heard things happened. But I remember reading the spec script that sold. But again, why did you spend money for that spec script if you're just gonna get it?
Netflix? Netflix has money and they don't know what to do with, so they just.
I'm trying to help them spend it. I got to be tomorrow. I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah, I'll do a show. All right, we have a guest in a movie for next week?
We do, because it's August 7th, next Wednesday. Stephanie Striegel, who brought With Nell and I last time, is back. Producer and writer and all-around great gal and coctologist, mixologist, whatever that is. She's great.
Coctologist sounds wrong.
It sounds better, doesn't it? My married him. She's gonna do Virus, not the one we've already done, the Gail Ann Hurd classic, based on the what is it? Was it a tap cow? No, it was a comic book back in the day.
That's the one with Jamie Lee Curtis. Right?
Yes, and one of the Baldwins. This one is a 1980 film with George Kennedy, best known as Petroni from the Airport films. He will be back with Robert Vaughn, who can do no wrong. I believe it's streaming on Prime for free if you subscribe, but I think it's elsewhere. But it's the 1980 film called Virus with George.
Yeah. I've seen it. This is a good bad one. It's a good bad one.
So it'll be fun. Yay, Jeff Lewis. Oh yes. I would say this is actually her original from 1919, Kamala Harris for the People, because as a prosecutor, that's what she would say when she Kamala Harris for the People. But I know there's a bunch of swag online, but this was back from her first run.
That's cool. So you're like nostalgic and up
well,
to date.
If you want to talk about gaslighting women, some of us, like in 1919, were like, Kamala. And they're like, Tracy, sit down. It has to be Joe, not Kamala. Cut to 2024. Tracy, sit down. It can't be Joe. It has to be Kamala. And I'm like, right. I need you to stop.
That's where I'm the same way. I'm like, okay,
so too. So I'm glad that she's running. I'm glad Joe is a hero for the age, but like, we got to win. We got to.
Yeah, that's it. We got to win.
Yeah,
100%. I'm 100% Harris.
Everybody
call. Hill's going to work at her new job tomorrow, so I'm calling or not calling. I'm going to look around on the internet to see what I can do volunteer-wise for the Harris campaign that won't be. I can't knock on doors again. I did that once for Katie Hill here. I cannot do that in Simi Valley. I can't knock on doors. It's terrifying.
I know.
Because they all have guns, Tracy.
I know. I feel you. I feel better about phoning as well. And yeah, I think that's right. But I think it's talking to your friends. People who, it's being open and listening and being prepared. If you go actually on the Harris campaign site, they're doing a great job. I've been doing some of the virtual they have seminars where they're like, here are the things, here's the facts, here's how the things, here are the people who are still undecided, here's what they want to hear, and here's how it ties in. Like, they're very good at messaging. So it does feel good just to contribute, because it's like literally the nature of democracy is really on the ballot. It's not, I said I grew up in a very conservative Orange County. I have friends that still somehow identify as Republicans, but they don't identify as Trumpers. And I think it's important for those of us who have really differing opinions to listen and say, okay, I hear you, but consider these facts and try to listen. But because more of us agree than not on the things that are essential. And it's about being open, I think, to the conversation. And I think, unfortunately, the orange guy has hurt discourse. And so sometimes it makes it harder. But I don't know, but just do everything you can and anywhere you can to help. And, it could be even $5 a week. anything helps, you know,
Yeah.
and just be a part of something that can be very exciting. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think y'all should do that. Don't let Hitler take over the country.
Again.
That's who he is. That's the thing. Wait, we can't do this. All
Can't
right,
do this.
we can't do this.
I mean,
let's.
to be fair, Hitler wrote his own book, so there's that.
Yeah.
But yeah. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. Thanks
We'll see you next week
See
when
ya.
we talk about another movie called Virus.
Another movie called Virus. 2 viruses. All right. Bye, everybody.